Howdy, folks. Welcome to Redneck Gone Green. I'm your host, David Cobb. I am the redneck. You bet I've gone green, and I'm trying to talk you into it too. And reminder, when we talk about going green on this program, we're not talking about mere environmentalism. We're talking about deep ecology, a recognition of the interconnectedness of all of life. And whether you come at that from a deeply eco-feminist spiritual perspective, or you come at that from a hard science point of view, or like me, you say those are both perfectly valid ways of understanding the world, I'm just going to say it like this, y'all. We are destroying the planet. We are literally destroying the web of life that we depend upon for life itself. And if we do not make a transition, then we are going to die. It is just that simple and that complex and that important. And on that cheery note, let's bring forward our co-host Shane Knight.
How you doing, David?
Man, I'm mighty fine. Shane, how you doing?
I'm all right, except for the part about, dying.
Right?
It's going to happen, but I don't want it to happen the way
I gotta say
to
this.
engineer it.
If we don't change, it's going to happen. And I genuinely, sincerely believe that ordinary folk are capable of building a mass movement strong enough and powerful enough to make a just transition. And before we get into any of the politics, Shane, I'm going to embarrass you a little bit. Are you ready?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
Here goes. Happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
I probably should have thought about that a little bit longer, but yeah, it is. We're celebrating our 12th year wedding anniversary today. So Bastille Day, which we did in fact choose on purpose. And I'll briefly give you a quick rundown of our story. We didn't have the big blowout wedding, the traditional bullshit that people spend a bunch of money on for relatively small memories, in my opinion. But we went to City Hall in New York City the same day that immigrants and LGBTQ people were allowed to marry in the city. So when we showed up to get married, there were feather boas and mariachi bands everywhere, as if we had a big blowout wedding. And it was a grand, exciting event at 9:30 in the morning. And then we both turned around and went to work.
That sounds just like you and Tess. That makes me so happy. Well, look here. I am itching to get into this program. So before we bring in Jody, though, I think Mel Figueroa from the Democracy Collaborative sent us in a Trump track crisis. Did she not?
She sure did.
Well, cue that rascal up and let's see what she produced for us.
All right. Let's see how the world is.
Welcome to this week's Tracking the Crisis, a weekly news roundup of Trump administration actions and movement responses. On Friday, July 4th, flash flood from the Guadalupe River inundated areas of Texas Hill Country, resulting in over 100 dead and 173 missing. Flood warnings did not appear to reach people in the area on time, catching them off guard. Texas officials blamed the National Weather Service for a bad forecast. The National Weather Service did indeed issue timely flash flood warnings, but local warning systems did not get the word out until hours later. DOJ has cut at least 600 positions at the National Weather Service. The New York Times reports that staffing shortages in certain areas, including coordination with local officials, may have contributed to delays in early response. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has come under fire for critical delays in FEMA response. Her new policy means she has to personally approve all contracts. CNN reported that Noem did not sign off on FEMA resources for the Texas floods, such as search and rescue teams and emergency relief centers, until 4 days after the disaster. The Texas disaster is the first major stress test of the Trump administration's hands-off approach to disaster management, and is considered a preview of things to come, as Trump has dramatically downsized FEMA and plans to phase it out after this year's hurricane season. This week, plans for a national farm workers' strike were announced on social media under the hashtags Huelga para la Dignidad or hashtag Strike for Dignity. The dates of the strike will be announced 2 days before it starts, but messages are going out on social media now to prepare people to get ready, give support, and stock up on produce before the strike begins. The strike will demand an end to ICE raids and deportations, a direct and immediate path to citizenship for farm workers, and permanent protection and pathways to citizenship for all undocumented people in the United States. Los Angeles-based organization Unión del Barrio, in coalition with General Strike Los Angeles, Community Self-Defense Coalition, and 40 other community groups, have called for a boycott of Home Depot over the company's silence as its stores have been targeted for ICE raids throughout Southern California. In a press release announcing the boycott on July 3rd, organizers demand that Home Depot denounce and disallow ICE raids on its property and provide safe spaces for day laborers. That's it for this week's Tracking the Crisis. Read more by signing up for our weekly news roundup in your email every Friday at trackingthecrisis.org. Back to you, David and Shane.
Thank
I got to tell
Mel.
you, Shane, I am sure glad that Mel reads the news so I don't have to.
That's right. That's right. And if anybody wants to know, she just said it, but you can go to trackingthecrisis.org and sign up there. The email's a little bit more in depth and they have a lot more information too. It's great.
They do. And one thing that I did want to lift up, and that is the upcoming potential boycott. And I'll say, Shane, I know I'm a little bit older than you, but I want to let y'all know that I still remember my mama explaining to me when I was probably 5 or 6 years old why I couldn't have grapes. And I'm going to tell you something. When she just laid it out, how folks were being mistreated and so forth so that the grapes could appear, that it made sense to me then as a 5-year-old. It makes sense to me now. We got to treat people with dignity and justice. So, support for that. And I hope that folks will sign up and get ready and be tracking that upcoming development.
I do too. It'd be a great response to what those people did to that. You remember the name of the park it was? Where they had that show of force. They walked through that park in LA.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, looky here. Shane, I'm going to say this, that it is really time that we build a broad, deep, and peaceful but militant movement in this country. And I can't think of a better guest than Jodie Evans to have a conversation about that. Jodie Evans has been a militant, peaceful, anti-imperialist voice for peace for decades. She's the co-founder and co-director of Code Pink, Women for Peace. She's been a visionary force in anti-war and social justice movements for decades. From war zones to boardrooms, she helps build bridges between grassroots activism and global diplomacy. And she and Medea Benjamin have fearlessly called out the hypocrisy of the warmongers using smart, strategic, nonviolent civil disobedience. I'm going to say that part again. Smart and strategic nonviolent civil disobedience, because she really puts strategy first. Her incredible resume, we could go on and on about it, but I want to bring Jody right in so we can get right down to it. So with that, I'm going to be welcoming Jodie Evans of Code Pink. Hey, Jody. Oh, gosh. Well,
I
you're
think
muted.
you got your mic muted.
Your mic is muted. Let's try it again.
So happy to be with you both.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you,
Thanks
Jody.
for having me on.
Yes. Well, look, I can't think of a better organization or a better individual as we are in the midst of this really collapse. And I do want to take one step back and take a matter of, let's call it facilitator's prerogative, because Jody, like you and I have something in common. I was just a lowly student activist working on Jerry Brown's campaign back in 1996. I should say the last
92.
time I worked on a Democratic Party presidential campaign. But you had a particular role to play there, didn't you?
Yes, I was the campaign manager and kind of the conceptualizer of the $100 limit, and that we could run a campaign on $100 and no staff, so that it would really be grassroots and it would speak to the people. The message, one message, and a presidential campaign, one message. It was, if you don't get money out of politics, it doesn't matter what you stand for, the money will win. And I hate to say it, but here we are in the fruition of that truth. The money wins. And then the money was nowhere near in politics the way it is. When I was, my first campaign with Jerry Brown was in '74. his first governor's race, the entire campaign cost $950,000.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to even wrap our heads around that today, isn't it?
I mean, those are, I don't know what those numbers are in 70, but still, like this last campaign, I don't know what the numbers were so huge.
Billion. On the Harris campaign alone, billion with a B, $1 billion. And what's really so disgusting to me, Jody, is you and I know what organizations like Code Pink or Resist and Build, like what real grassroots groups could do with just a tiny fraction of that. And it's all being spent on stupid, useless consultants and 30-second campaign ads. There's no institutions being built with it.
Yeah, but what you described is a description of something, but not the outcome. The outcome is the dumbing down of the American people. Yes, that money gets spent on all that, but it gets spent really on turning us not into citizens, but into slaves, basically, into just being used by the distortion, the complexity, the lying. It's a toxic waste dump of information that it's hard to dig yourself out of and have a relationship to anything real. And so, we are the ones that carry the burden of it. And, people say, well, why do people vote against themselves? People don't know what they're voting for anymore. They're just pitted against ideas and the brilliance of how all these strategists are. They come in and they hook the very best part of you. They hook your empathy, and then they use it for their power. And I think we need to look at that. It's not a benign thing. It's a very violent thing. So I love you guys. It's like that you arise this podcast out of a connection to the earth, and a connection to relationship to the earth. Well, that's a disruption of our relationship to ourselves, to each other, to values. I mean, we're left with not knowing what is true, what is real. We're left upside down. And so, yes, that's what they do, but the consequences of it are real and paid for by the people. And so to say we live in a democracy, that's a lie. And then you tell people to go out and vote and it's going to solve all their problems, another lie. And then they're left feeling powerless and not sure what to do.
It's so true, Jody. And I really thank you for taking a step back and not just describing the problem, but what the real impact is. And one thing that I got to say, it was really hard for me because I still remember as a little boy being taught that the United States was a democracy. And not only that, we were this great shining light on the hill, and we were going to be democracy to the entire world. And I remember being so proud of being an American then, right? And now, of course, I look back and I realize that I had been lied to, but it's not the kind of lie, because like Mrs. Armstrong, my third grade teacher, did not go to bed at night saying, I can't wait to bring these children into my classroom and I'll fill their mind full of lies and propaganda. See, Mrs. Armstrong told that creation myth because she believed it. And I believed it just like all my classmates believed it, because everybody wants to live in liberty, justice, and equality. And those are not American values. Those are human values. Yes, American children want liberty, justice, and equality and deserve it. And so do Chinese children and children from Ghana and Palestinian children and Jewish children. And we can go down the list, right? And I think that there's something I just don't know, Jody, how else to say it, but I can't give that up. I can wrap my head around no Easter bunny. I can accept no tooth fairy. And at the right time of day, if you approach me properly, I'm willing to entertain that maybe there's not a Santa Claus. But I'll be damned if I give up on this country not being a democracy. We deserve that, and I'm going to fight for it.
Oh, you can fight for it because, it's always imperfect. All these ideas, these words we say and expect perfection from. I mean, so let's just start there. And we have to start with ourselves. What is it to be a democratic human? What even is that to act from that space? So I think when we distance these words way out there and we give them meaning, but we don't know what the meaning is, we actually don't even have a relationship with them, then that's where the distortion gets created. And also, a country is its people. And people are beautiful everywhere. And we let countries dehumanize us and hate each other. And we let these governments, we let structures of power dehumanize us and make us hate each other and make us think we're better than each other, or, they're worse, or they're to be afraid of. I mean, Code Pink started when, Bush was frightening the American people into a war using color-coded alerts, orange, red, and yellow. Be afraid today, it's a red day. Be afraid, it's a yellow day. There was nothing, wasn't connected to anything. He was just using you to go to war on an innocent country, Iraq, that had nothing to do with anything. Not 9/11, it wasn't ISIS, a beautiful country that we had had sanctions on for a decade, where we had been starving people. A country that was a peace economy, that made sure its people were fed, made sure its people were housed. Do you know that Iraq was the most educated country per capita in the world when we attacked it? So, beautiful country, but we were lied to, and 85% of the country thought we should go to war in Iraq. Why? Because we just been terrorized by 9/11, and we were used, that part that gets hooked in, right? Gets hooked and used by people in power. And so, yes, it's that we get used, and it's not that we're not people beautiful. It's not that our neighbors aren't beautiful. It's not that humans aren't beautiful. It's the power structures. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. We've known that for a few millennia. So here we have more power in less hands than any time in history. Not only more power, but more violent power. Like nothing has ever, ever, ever come close to what has accumulated in a very short period of time. And so, yes, you can believe in democracy, and you can work for democracy. You can love your fellow Americans, and you can love all the people of the world. But if we also don't be honest about what happened with the structures of power that we pay our taxes to, then we ourselves live in a lie which creates a contortion, and therefore we can be used to do more violent things. The fact that we live in a country that stands on the bones of a genocide of the indigenous peoples that were here before us, the fact that the wealth of the country is built on slavery, those are pieces of information we need to know. They're not judgments about who we are, but they're, if we aren't accepting it and making choices from it and understanding why we have privilege, why we are the way we are in relationship to the world, then we can't really respond to it in an authentic or useful way. And I think all humans want to be in care and be useful. That's what, kind of what we're thrown to do.
I love that, Jody. It's reminding me of a phrase that one of my mentors often used, and that is go soft on people and hard on systems. And that emphasizes it's a philosophy of compassion and understanding towards individual people while maintaining a clear, firm, and rigorous approach to the systemic nature of the problems. And individuals can struggle with challenges, but the root causes of those issues are a result of systemic problems. And we have literally created a system that is incentivizing all of the worst aspects. Jody, one thing I say is, I don't think that humans are either angelic nor demonic, right? I think that we're basically going to do what we're incentivized to do and what the cultural norms and narratives are. And just as you talk about how in the formation of Code Pink and the lies, the drumbeat that the corporate media told about weapons of mass destruction, which they knew was a lie. The documents are very clear now, that constant drumbeat and narrative. And I do want to just give you a chance to talk a little bit about Code Pink in its inception and some of the amazing and creative ways that y'all sort of burst on the scene.
Okay. Well, we kind of burst out of something that existed before Code Pink. We were at Pioneers, and Diane Wilson, who's an amazing activist.
Oh, another Texan.
Yes, there we go. And, just inspired us with her speech that ended Pioneers that year. And she said, a reasonable woman conforms to the world, an unreasonable woman has the world conform to her. May we all be unreasonable women. And, Nina and I got together. It was like, yeah, we should have an unreasonable women retreat and like figure out what we're going to do together. And Caroline Casey of the Visionary Activists had already called Code Hot Pink. So we got together, we decided we'd be under Code Hot Pink, and we were going to go naked in the Texas Gulf to say that we weren't indecent. What they were doing in the Texas Gulf was. So we got together. Pramila Jayapal, who's now a congresswoman from Seattle, was one of us, and we got together in August. Wow, that would have been 23 years ago, and we went to the Texas Gulf because there were people in India on a hunger strike because of what Dow Chemical had done to Bhopal. And they were on a hunger strike, and they'd ended up in the hospital, and they said, could you carry the hunger strike forward? And Diane, of course, would take on any hunger strike. So she was like, yes. So we're doing a hunger strike outside of Dow Chemical. Diane gets arrested. She goes to jail for 6 months. It was the start. But while we're there is when Bush says, we have to go to war in Iraq. And I live in LA, and I had spent many years since the 92 presidential campaign working in Watts and learning that the war in Vietnam had come home to my community, and 20,000 people had been killed in 20 years, and it was a war zone that nobody talked about. So I got on a plane and I flew to DC to put myself in front of the White House and say no to war. And Diane, Medea Benjamin and Starhawk were there protesting the World Bank. And I called a bunch of friends, including Caroline Casey, over to a girlfriend's house, what are we going to do? And Caroline had already called Code Hot Pink. So we're we're going to call Code Hot Pink tomorrow and say, no war, the world does not want this war. And I went to start the website, and it was a porn site. So I had to call it Code Pink. So we did 3 actions that day that we have continued to do for the last 23 years. We were outside the White House when he was launching the war in the Rose Garden, and we said no war, and Diane climbed up on the fence, hung a big banner. They thought she was a terrorist. We were on the news until they figured out she was an anti-war activist, and then the story disappeared. We took our shirts off and had doves of peace on our bras, and it said, read my tits, no war in Iraq, so we could get the attention of the media to talk about the issue. And then we disrupted the hearing in Congress that day. And I would say pretty much that's what we do every day. We get in the way of power. We get in the way of the lie. We expose the lie for what it is. We, try to disrupt the media where it's telling the lie, because the media always works for the liars, never the truth tellers, and never the people. And so we have been doing that around so many things. We tried to stop the Iraq war. Medea and I wrote a book, Stop the Next War Now, which was about stopping the war on Iran, where we felt we were victorious. We've stopped it many times, and now it's and we've been, when drones were happening and it was a new thing on the scene, we raised the awareness around drones. Obama was droning people around the world, 2,500 drones a month. We got it down to below 400 by bringing family members of the drone victims to expose really what was happening, that no one was in danger. We were literally murdering people. We've been to Palestine many times, including in our very beginning. But after Operation Cast Lead, we took 1,000 people over 2009 to Gaza and delivered aid and raised awareness. One of the first U.S. members of the BDS campaign, trying to expose what Saudi Arabia was doing to Yemen using U.S. tax dollars. I mean, wherever your tax dollars are being used to brutalize people, to be violent to people, to destroy the planet, we are there exposing it, exposing the lies, and using the opportunity where the liars are to expose them and speak to the people and let them know what's really happening.
Folks, you're watching and or listening to Redneck Gone Green. I'm your host, David Cobb, with co-host Shane Knight. Our guest this week is Jodie Evans, the co-founder and co-director of Code Pink. Jody, we could spend the rest of our time just talking about all the amazing work y'all and you have done in the past. But I want to lean in on some of the projects and programs and campaigns you're currently working on. And, I write a weekly Substack. If y'all are not yet subscribed to it, please go to Substack at Redneck Gone Green and sign up. I do that because I know that there are folks who are not going to be able to watch this, but I do want to give them something to read. I like to say something to read, something to watch, something to listen to. And I'll be very honest. I was astounded to find 11 active campaigns. I was already a fan of both you and Medea and Code Pink and all the amazing work that entire crew that y'all have are do, but 11 campaigns. So give us a quick overview, Jody, of what Code Pink is up to. And I want to say, end us on the local peace economy, because I really want to dig in on that one.
Cool. So, first of all, Medea and I have been volunteers for 23 years. So we don't run Code Pink. We have two amazing co-directors, Fareed and Danica, and they are brilliant leaders, and we feel very privileged to have them. When we started Code Pink, we saw it as a container to help those women who wanted to be active against the war, no matter where they were. If they had pink on and it said Code Pink, they would feel that they had the shoulders of everyone else that was with them. So we're the team that is Code Pink. We feel it is our task to create ways to engage, to be, create strategic ways that we engage your time and talent to scratch at power, to shine a light on power, to expose the lies. So we feel it's our task. And then Code Pink is 200,000 other people who are engaged locally. We have Code Pinks across the country that engage in beautiful ways all the time. And then our campaigns are another way to engage if you're not engaged in a local community, of a way to engage on an issue that you care about. So when we see the war being driven by the lies, we try to enter it and find a way to really expose it. So I would say, one of my favorites is I started China's Not Our Enemy in 2020, because I literally saw the propaganda happening and I was like tracking it. I was like, oh my God, that's the same lie again across every platform. I didn't even know what the information was about. I just saw it being parroted. I was like, really? We're going to go to war in China? That's insane. And of course, I start tracking it. And for sure, there's a lot of lies. I call them weeds, where the State Department puts out all these lies. And then if you get caught in it, you have to argue yourself out of the weeds that aren't even true, so that you get caught in the lies that you have to defend yourself, kind of anyway. So it's like denounce Hamas, it's like, we're not getting to the issue here. So I've learned so much about China, but the campaign's called China's Not Our Enemy, because they're driving a war on China. That's the end of the world, because that's a nuclear war, a few nuclear weapons, the entire world over. That's a climate change. We don't survive. So that's just insanity. And not only that, I've learned in the process, there are people in the Pentagon that think you can win a nuclear war. So that's how on crack these people are. Then we've got Palestine, which has been a campaign, that we've had as part of Code Pink since we started. October 7th, it definitely, got ratcheted up. We have actions every day. We have engagements across the country. We're outside the UN. And there, we also have community meetings each week on all of our campaigns, because it's really, we're serving the communities. So everybody makes each other smarter. And, the China campaign, people have been together and coming for 5 years. I feel like we're all smarter. And when we're intentionally made dumb on something, when 88% of the United States thinks that China is the enemy, why? It hasn't gone to war on anything. We go to war on everything. So, and it's, it's 1,500,000 people, and we haven't actually won a war. So is that really the thing you want to have happen? But you're being made, like I said, you've been hooked in and told China's your enemy, and it's after you and it's coming to get you, and you're going to have to live under China. If you're poor, that's not such a bad thing, since it took everyone out of poverty, but nobody knows that. So, we have these communities where we get together and share and learn and create all the tactics and strategy and tools together. On Palestine, the same. We have hundreds of people to come to our Palestine call. I mean, one of the reasons we started it was just to take care of each other. How do you live through what's happening? How do you be engaged when you're just trying to keep yourself together, to watch this violence and to feel like, slowly every day witnessing the insanity of the people that have power and how stupid they are, how violent they are, and how they're owned by a foreign government and not serving you at all, and using your tax dollars to destroy in the most violent ways other people and the planet. War is Not Green is another campaign where it's like, a friend wrote a book about drawdown, and I said, wait, war's not in here. There's 100 ways to draw down the carbon, but like war's the greatest contributor to climate change. Where is it? And they said, well, there's no research on it. So we only had things that were researched on. So got the Cost of War at Brown to do research on it. War is the greatest contributor to climate change. It is the elephant in the room of the entire green movement, because no one takes it on, even though that lever of moving those trillions of dollars that are spent on war to peace would do more for the planet than anything else that those trillions of dollars that get funded for climate change are funding. So, that's another area. Accountability. So we look at why are we here? We are here from lies, a lack of accountability, and a lack of responsibility. Well, they're not going to hold each other accountable, right? They're just at the trough feeding away at it. I mean, the greed and the lies. In my lifetime, I have watched the military-industrial complex be what President Eisenhower warned. It is destructive, extractive, and it is the tail wagging the dog. I mean, it right now, and what it's capable of is really unthinkable, and I think hard for people to pay attention to. But if we don't hold people accountable, they're going to keep doing the same things they've been doing. And everything that is happening are people that we knew they were destroying the earth. We knew they were destroying people. We knew their violence, but we don't hold anyone accountable. Who's being held accountable right now? Francesca Albanese, the UN rapporteur, who's a volunteer, who all day, every day as a volunteer speaks out for the human rights abuses of the most beautiful, vulnerable people and also beautiful people on the planet, like a peace economy that is being decimated as everyone watches. No, she's held accountable and sanctioned the peacemakers. I want to state also that nobody funds peace. There isn't a dime that goes to peace. It's not even, doesn't even show up in any philanthropy. It's not even on the list of what anybody gives to. So we want peace. We have to be creating it and not just standing up against war. So under the Obama administration, when we were really working on the drones that he was doing and trying to end the further investment in war, I was like, this is really, it's just hard work because you're up against a wall that is not going to move. So I was like, we're going to all perish at the task here. I'm like, what's the strategy that doesn't have us at a wall? And I realized, we're not going to end war till we end the war economy, because war just serves the war economy. Amen. And the war economy is capitalism, the extractive, destructive, oppressive economy that is killing you, your community, and the planet. And not only that, but it creates addictions inside of you that you don't even know. It's kind of like you talking about your teacher. Everyone does this all innocently. That's why you can't attack people. It's a structure that forces on us behaviors that we all do innocently out of really the goodness of our heart, because we think we're being good. So we're in these really bad addictions that don't serve us. They make us unhappy. It's why people are on drugs, and, it's just the unhappiness that we live inside of that I'll talk about later. After being in China, I can really talk about that. So I was like, the end result of this war economy is going to be horrific. I mean, if you read Marx, it's like it basically eats its own and then it destroys itself, so we're in that direction. And I said after the Jerry Brown campaign, I said, the empire's dying. It's going to probably take 75 years like Rome. But we're seeing it sped up a little bit. I thought I wouldn't be here for it. So it's going to be ugly. It's going to drive this global inequality, global climate change, AI, and coming fascism, I used to say, now it's here. But if loneliness, is a creation of the war economy, and fascism arises out of loneliness, then what do we think is going to happen when we're not doing anything to get in its way? So I called it the coming tsunami, and like the mythological flood, what is the arc that gets us through this tsunami? Because I don't believe in apocalyptic thing. You study history, there's no apocalypse. There's just these momentary disruptions. So like, what's the arc that gets you through? It's a peace economy. It is the economy that is the only reason there is life on the planet. It's the millennia of practices that human beings have used to thrive. It's why we have life. But it is in the last, 100 years being squeezed to death and squeezed to like it's, the war economy has it on life support. The commons, all the things, the beautiful things you guys talk about on your show, that's the peace economy. And it's the giving, caring, sharing, thriving, relational, resilient economy without which none of us would be alive. We are not alive because of the war economy. We are alive because of the peace economy, because we care for each other, because our parents took care of us and didn't expect anything back, because we're moved to care for each other, because we love. That is peace. And these other habits take us away from that beauty. What is more beautiful than love and kindness and care and culture? I mean, the war economy has decimated and monetized culture instead of the culture that enriches and enlivens, and it's what makes us human. But if we're taken away from the very sinews of what makes us human, then we can be very easily used we just become robots to be used by the monster of greed and power. So I created a process where you can see the war economy habits, and you don't have to break the addiction. You just have to shift to practicing a peace economy habit. And now 15 years later, I've just watched people find joy, find life, find effervescence, and move out of this thing that had them. And so if we're trying to liberate others, we got to start by liberating ourselves. And yes, we have to continue to scratch at power and shine a light on it and help people understand the system they live inside of so that they can take themselves off of it. But we also have to be cultivating a peace economy inside of ourselves, inside of our community, and for the planet. Because if we aren't cultivating it, we don't have a future. The future will just be the war economy, its devastation, its violence, and its destruction. It's up to us. And so, it's at the core of all the work we do at Code Pink. It is the structure of how we operate. And it's also what we need to be doing locally. It also makes you the best activist. Being a peace economy practitioner makes you the best activist.
Jody, I've just been enthralled and just realized I have not been a good interlocutor at all. I've just been completely mesmerized by what you've been saying. So what I am going to do, though, is pause for a moment and get you to describe that workbook, because the workbook that is available on Code Pink's website, the URL cleverly codepink.org, y'all, all you have to do is go to the peace economy, the local peace economy portion of the website, which I did. And there is an amazing workbook that anybody can do. So I'm going to invite you to walk listeners and viewers through that workbook and try to entice them to get involved.
Okay, so I made it a workbook. I wrote a book and then I tore it up because we all know this. Here's the thing. I know what's happening in the world is overwhelming and we want to be effective. And so we end up reverting back to the thing we know. Right now, you want to be doing everything you've never done before, because what we've done before hasn't worked. And how we create a future is by new ideas, new experiments, failure, until we get it. And we're kind of afraid of failure. We fall back on the things we know. And here is an invitation to find every day a new thing to do. Try something new. Because if we're going to create a new future, you've got to start. And so I made it a workbook. to help us unpack where we are as citizens of the world here in the belly of the beast. My taxi driver reminded me that Star Wars taught us that empires are stupid. So we live in an empire. It is our culture. We are stupid. So I think if we just start there, we will understand ourselves in relationship to the world a lot better. And just a reminder, we are in the United States of America. It's 330 million people. We live on a planet of almost 8 billion people. So also don't think of yourself as super special, and that will not be useful. But like, if you want to be super helpful to everyone in the world, you've got some work to do. And because we are the toxic, violent form that affects everyone in the world. So not you with your fingerprints, but you with your tax dollars. And the way to get around it is, as some of us know that live in, the zones where the weather has been effective, no one is here to save you. It's all up to us. It's up to your neighbor. It's up to, it's like, now is the time to take responsibility. It's mine. So I made a workbook for you to help unpack your relationship to the war economy. First of all, we've forgotten how to listen. Just the basic things like, how do we remember to be human? How do we remember to be in relationship? One of the hardest pivots for everyone to take is the one from transactional to relational, because we don't understand how transactional we've become. We think we're relational. And when you start to practice some of these, from the addiction to the habits, first of all, it's almost like you can breathe more, but you fall in love with yourself. You fall in love with each other in glorious ways, because we've been so separated from ourselves, from each other, from our communities. Commons are gone. Commons used to make us human. Commons are uncomfortable. Community is uncomfortable. I always say you can only work in community, and if everybody is agreeing with each other, it's a cult, not a community. Communities are where we all have different ideas, and how do we get them to be respected and listened to and understood, and have everybody get to try out an experiment. So the workbook is free. It's on peaceeconomy.org if you want to go straight there, and also made it interactional. So you can kind of show up and say, well, I want to learn this. And I've like 3,000 places you can go, but I've curated it so you can take a deep dive where you are, what you're interested in, and kind of explore. The workbook is for you to take to kind of help you be in relationship to the peace economy, in relationship to yourself, and in relationship to the world we live in right now. And have, start from relationship. Everything starts with a relationship. And I say, don't do it alone. You must do it in community, because one of the great diseases we have is individualism, and start to break that one now. And because it'll first of all be liberating. We are not the center of the universe, and the universe is big. And once you get liberated from that, like, so much can fall away right away. And then the other thing that happens as you start to do this work is grief, because, like David said, when you get lied to and then you wake up to it, it's not a really good feeling. And how do you grapple with it? So we have a whole section on the kind of cycle of being human that was always in culture. We had these practices in culture that helped us be human, but they've been unacculturated from us. And grief, care, joy, and celebration, if you look at all cultures, they were all in the culture. They were part of every day. They were part of the month. They were part of the year. All these connective tissues of the spaces where we could really feel grief. It's a human condition. It's love. It's part of love. And right now, I think so many people are locked in so much trauma because there isn't the space to grieve. There isn't the space to be with. There isn't the space to just cry the tears of the overwhelm of what it is to live in modernity, what it is to live in a war economy, what it is to live separate from ourselves, separate from the planet, separate from what gives us life, in these concepts that don't serve us. It's like we live in stone soup. So the workbook is there for you to enter in any way you want. It's a tool to support you. So I'm an artist, and one of the things I learned very early as an artist is that you need structure to be creative. You need structure actually to be human. And that's Gravity. We should all kiss gravity, right? Because it's enough of a structure that gives us a chance to be liberated, because we have something to be against, something to be connected to. So it's a structure, because in the structure, which is kind of missing, the only thing, the structure that really wants you to be connected to it is the structure of violence and the system of the war economy. So as you pull yourself away from that, you need another structure to be connected to, so you don't feel upside down and rootless. And part of this workbook is to help you reroute in values, reroute in why do you wake up in the morning, reroute in what am I committed to, that I am going to choose for every day. Instead of having the world choose for me, instead of having the structures of violence choose for me, I'm going to make different choices. And it takes a little bit of courage. But courage is a really amazing, wonderful thing, because courage wakes up your heart, and it makes you it alivens you. So there's so many ways that you can enter the book where you are, what you need is. So I didn't make it like a how-to. It's an exploration. This is all an exploration. One of the things the war economy takes away from us is our imagination and our creativity. And so start there. Start wherever you want, but I say you have to start in community, because then you'll get caught in your story and it'll be about you. But when you do it in a community, one of the things that I've seen happen in the community is when everybody starts out and they decide, well, let's look at this thing, to a community, people find out what's inside of them that's never been accessed before, and they literally fall in love with themselves. We have so much inside of us that's not accessed, because we don't even realize the prisons we live inside of, the silos we live inside of, how narrow they are. The war economy narrows, and we think we live in abundance, but we live in this little narrow cell. And it starts locally. The whole, the systems of life happen when you talk to a scientist. You can see it in a cell. So it doesn't mean that's where you're going to reside all the time. But if you start with the cell of your community and the cell of how do you relate to something locally, it will build your wisdom, it will build your intelligence, it will build your relationality, which then will make you the most effective caregiver, change agent, server of life and love that you can be, because it takes you out of the war economy culture into what is it to be in relationship? What is it to be in care? What is it to be in celebration of life and service to life? And it helps you not then hear the ting of the stupidity outside. You're not even going to be interested. One of my big, detoxifications is don't even talk about Trump. There's nothing you can do about him. Every minute you give to him, you empower him. What are you creating instead? What are you creating instead? That's all there is. That's when we take the power back and we take our creativity back and we start cultivating the future. And I want to say there's thousands of projects around the country. They are amazing. And a little digression, it came out of my head and I believed in it because millennia people have lived this way. But to go to China and actually experience a trusting culture that comes out of Confucianism, that comes out of being acculturated from birth, to not being the center of the universe, to thinking about yourself, thinking about your family, thinking about your community, thinking about your country, thinking about the world, thinking about the universe, just makes us behave differently. It makes us to be cared for in the way I am, to have people even see me, to live in a place of trust. I've brought so many people from Latin America and Africa, and one of the things they say to me is it's what I experienced here was a nervous system that I don't even recognize. What it's like to have a nervous system that isn't jacked. Or the women will come from Latin America and go out in the park at 2:00 in the morning because they didn't understand how much energy they spent taking care of themselves from what they were afraid of. And I think for me, they're an example of we don't understand the things that we've been made afraid of, the trauma that we hold that then gets used by others. And it's intergenerational. It's been going, this modernity separation culture is part of that trauma. And the healing begins with us. So we have not only steps you can take to be engaged locally, but how to take care of each other in the cycle of reconnection, the becoming human, part of the human family, part of the soil of the planet that serves life. It's for me, it's like, how do we each create conditions conducive for life? If we can turn ourselves away from the madness and do that, there is a future that is possible.
No, Jody, it was so beautiful. And listen, thanks to Chris and Shane, who've been throwing up comment after comment. You have really lit up our audience. And so we've been dropping them into the comments. So for those of you who are just listening on the podcast, you'll just have to trust me that the bottom quarter or they really lit up. But one of our longtime listeners and viewers is Michael Nugent, who said something that I really want to lift up and get you to comment on, Jody. And that is, Michael says they mix democratic language while also training us from an early age in dog eat dog. We need a new culture and education based on cooperation and sharing, a rupture with our current education. And as I read Michael's words and listening to you, you're really talking about this workbook is literally inviting people into that process. So I just love to hear
also
you
you're going to have
Michael.
to find out the embedded doggy dog eat dog in you, and have patience for it, and have love for it, and understand. David, you modeled it so well at the beginning. My teacher was just teaching me what she knew. We've all been indoctrinated into some very dark practices, and we have to take care of each other as we break them, and we have to have patience. And patience, it takes time. It does not happen overnight, and we go backwards. It's like we forgot patience. We forgot what love and care, as we unpack the toxicity that has been layered and layered on us. And the fear, like everything is about fear. I mean, here we are in this like country of abundance, on a planet of abundance, where power has made us afraid of each other. Like, trust, what it is even to trust again. I mean, I look at it with young people, I look at it with my grandkids, and I cry. I mean, we have work to do, but we can't. The thing is, it's just like, what is my work? Remembering that we can only touch what is closest to us. I mean, David, you and I've taught activism like our whole lives. And I know it's the hardest thing in teaching activists. No, you can't change your great Aunt Elma. Leave her alone. What you need to help are the people closest to you that get it but don't quite get it, that have been caught up by some distortions that you need to help them through, and care how to help each other. I mean, just being able to come from, and this speaks to what you said earlier of how the community has to be huge, how the tent has to be big. It is all of us. We can't be separated from anyone. And we've been forced to hate. We've been forced to be separated. I mean, I think, how people were taught to speak and hate is taught. It was taught to them. We're not born hating.
I'm reminded, every public school teacher I've ever met, Jody, they became a teacher because they wanted to help children learn how to be productive and participatory members of society. And the most important thing that any human child learns is how to walk and how to talk. And in the corporate system, the first thing that we're taught is sit down and shut up. And it just feels to me like we're doing it wrong, right? But the good news is that in our own hearts, in our own souls, in our minds, we're still carrying that with us. And I guess as we come to the end of this program, I do want to remind folks at Redneck Gone Green that the reason this community is growing is because we are a community. We are bringing voices like Jodie Evans to the program, like Mike Ferner for Vets for Peace last month, like Sachin Parada from, I could go down the list. I'm really proud of the quality of the conversations that we're bringing in. But I also am going to remind you, the viewer listener of Redneck Gone Green, that we hope to not just be leftist entertainment here. We're inviting you into a movement that is capable of changing the world. And with that, Jody, this hour has just flown by. I do want to give you a chance in your final thoughts to invite people into Code Pink, how they can get involved, what they can do.
Oh, sure. Just go to codepink.org and find one of the actions this week that inspires you and engage in it. We will reach back out. We promise to keep you engaged every week with something meaningful, something that actually scratches the power or shines a light on power. We take this very seriously. We do not want to waste your heart or your time, and we do not want to make you dumb. We want to make you smarter. So if you sign up, you'll get something in your box. When you read it, you will be smarter. You will be able to unpack power, and we'll give you an opportunity to scratch at those that are being violent to others.
Jody, you were reminding me of the work at Jerry Brown. I remember calling that 1-800 number. Jerry Brown's voice came on. I don't remember exactly what he said, but then he said in that message, and somebody is going to call you right back, and they did.
So yes, we are a relational organization. We are people around the country. We want to be related to you. We want to support people to be engaged for peace. And it's not about left and right. It's not a left movement. It's a humanist movement. It's a movement of love. And love and peace, they take attention and they take a muscle, and we've got a muscle to build. We've built muscles of violence, the dog eat dog muscle. So we need to let that go limp and start building a muscle of peace and love. And it takes attention and it takes community, and we are here to help. Codepink.org.
Codepink.org. Jodie Evans, thank you so much for spending an hour with us. I want to wish you peace and love and appreciation. Hey, Shane Knight, I told you Jodie Evans was going to be a firecracker, didn't I?
Yes, you did. And I like you, I was completely mesmerized. I could have sat there and listened to her talk about it. The things that kept rolling through my head were, one of the most important things was the discovery of inner peace for people. I wish we could have spent a little bit more time to sort of pick her brain on that, because I think that's what she was really honing in on. And that once you can cultivate a sense of inner peace, it works its way outward in a way that I think is powerful.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because one of the things that I have found myself is that there is something about righteous anger, right? Like I am angry at hungry children. I am angry about a genocide. I am angry about the destruction of Mother Earth. But here's what I know about anger. If you let anger just stay in you and stew, it's toxic, it's damaging, right? But the thing about righteous anger is if you are motivated by those injustices, that harm, and then you get involved in trying to change the systems and the structures, including the inner work yourself, it's almost like alchemy, right? Like that anger actually transmutes into joy. And you said, did you see how often Jodie Evans was smiling and beaming as she was introducing us and inviting us into that thing? So to me, I think one of the most powerful things about Code Pink is it is creative, it is playful, it is deadly serious, and it is having fun. And they do, in fact, make you smarter. So I am so very glad that we were able to have Jodie Evans and Code Pink. And next week, Shane, we've got another fantastic guest. Next week, Monday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, we'll have Kamal Franklin of Community Movement Builders. They're a chapter-based organization. I think they're up to 9 or 10 chapters across the country. Their anchor chapter is in Atlanta, Georgia, where they've been at the tip of the spear fighting Cop City. I am really excited to bring Kamal Franklin and Community Movement Builders to Redneck Gone Green. And now, as we close out this hour, I'm going to end it the same way I began it, by wishing you a happy anniversary, Shane. You take Tess out for a nice dinner, all right?
We'll do that. Yes, sir.
All right. Much love to you, Shane.
Yeah, to you too, brother.